Hello, all, and welcome to a very special Friday afternoon beer review. Well, it's actually almost evening because it's 5:45, and it's fairly late because I had a migraine most of this morning. I thought it was like, you know, I first woke up like around like 4 a.m. and it's like, why do I have like such a bad headache? Because I really only had that one glass of whiskey followed by like a single light beer after. So it wasn't like, and that was with a fairly large dinner, that big bowl of jerk pork and rice that I had. So I was like, oh dear, I don't think this is like an overindulgence one. This is like a migraine. And oh boy, it was one of the worst I've had in a very, very long time. Like, stick my head in the shower, cold water, hot water, lie in the dark, and so basically 6 hours of the day, just completely goners. But it's more or less gone now. It's just kind of like got the echo and the sort of ick feeling that always follows a migraine. So I figure I'm okay to review. And what is it that we're reviewing? Well, I am following along in these Dewar series of reviews. This was a gift from Randall Lim, um, my friend. And yeah, this is Dewar's Blended Scotch Whisky Japanese Smooth Mizunara Oak Cask Finish. So, and this one has like an age statement on it of aged 8 years, double aged for extra smoothness, and then finished in Japanese Mizunara oak casks with delicious honey and floral notes, warm spices, and a dry finish. So, Mizunara, for those of you who don't know, is a type of Japanese oak. It's fairly expensive because it is gnarly and harder to work with than regular oak. And a lot of the reviews focus on like how good God's name were they able to go and age in Mizunara oak casks because they're so expensive, that most Japanese single malts that age in Mizunara are over $100 for a single bottle. And, I have a suspicion that they use oak cubes, in oak cubes instead of like an actual barrel cask. But who knows? Maybe they figured out something. Maybe they found like a secret source. Because I can tell you, this definitely does have a lot of Mizunara tasting notes. And with that, let's just get to this and, start this review. So as you can kind of suspect, I'm going to be doing a bunch of comparison reviews. Okay, let's go and overpour it a little bit. And why are we overpouring, folks? Mostly because I just want to, I have the water here, so I can do it with the water, and I'm going to do my best to keep track. So, because with 3 bottles, that's going to be a lot of comparison reviews. So, nothing to really distinguish this too much from the original Dewars. Maybe a hair lighter. We'll see later in our comparison reviews. So sort of honey yellow color. Maybe touches of orange there. Looks like a bit thicker legging. I know. Thicker legging than, yeah, the original white label. Okay, so you kind of got like the Dewar's notes before. Honeyed fruits. Fruits and honey, I suppose. Stone fruit. Not much peat in the nose. Maybe just a ghost. But what's interesting is that you get like the Mizunara there, this sort of spicy, spicy, almost slightly herbaceous kind of note. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me vaguely of shiso leaf, you know? Shiso leaf is kind of a leaf used in Japanese cooking. Some white pepper. Maybe not as fruity in the nose as the original white label. Okay, onto the palate. Mm. So again, like the white label, a bit muddy, but a very different taste profile. In the mids and into the finish, there's this kind of burst of pepperiness. It's not like black pepper or red pepper. It's more like I'd say white pepper, or because it doesn't have like a dark note to it. It has a more aromatic note to it, but it's not quite long pepper either, you know. So kind of in between white pepper and long pepper. There's an overall floral kind of perfumey note throughout, as it said on the label as well. Peach shows up in the top note, more towards the finish. And there's a same kind of unfortunate astringent taste in the long finish. Kind of wonder if that's just, kind of an artifact of the, Dewar's juice. So yeah, there's a definite spicy herbaceousness that is not there in the original white label. And it's very interesting spicy herbaceousness. Consequently, because they're using Mizunara Oak for the finishing, there's a lot less of sort of the vanilla oak tannic notes that you get from regular oak. Again, very dry. I'm wondering if that's just an element of the Dewar's house style. It's very dry for a Scotch. Not that Scotches are very wet, and also, you can say most Isla single malts are, because they're so heavily peated, are dry AF, as the kids say nowadays. So yeah, definitely more of a spicy, interesting, aromatic, herbaceous note. That kind of mixes with woodiness. So instead of kind of vanilla, smooth notes, you got a lot sharper, a lot more aromatic notes there. It's also, I think it's just the peaty, the smoky peat is just slightly less apparent in this one, but it wasn't very apparent in the other one either. The white label, that is. Okay, let's go and put in the water. See? So a teaspoonful of water, that's about, I consider that like a few drops worth, really. Interesting. So this makes the Mizunara really stand out a bit more. And the peat also stand out a little bit more. So the fruit aspect, and to a lesser extent, the floral aspect has diminished, bringing out a bit more of the spice and wood and smoke. Okay, onto the palate. It always amazes me how much a little water can change these things, you know? And not all the time, too. Like sometimes you'll add it and it just like tastes the same, only slightly watered down. This one, it definitely has a big change. So it's still kind of sweet up front, but then that's so. Okay, wait. It does a transitions in the finish. So spice, then peat smoke, touches of woodiness, and then that kind of astringency. Man, that's kind of, it's not awful. It's not like I don't, you want to brush your teeth kind of astringency. It's just like you got like this wonderful experience, and then the final touch that it leaves in the mouth is like kind of like, oh, really, man, really. And I kind of think that it's just the distillate that they're using. Or a mix of distillates, I suppose. So yeah, it initially comes off a little bit more sweet, just perceptibly sweet in the very upfront, but without much taste dimension to that sweetness. So there's not much of that stone fruit left. Um, yeah. So honey followed by subtle florals in the top note that transition into peatiness. Huh. I can't say which I would prefer more because it seems to have upped the astringency a bit in that finish, but it also has a much more interesting transition from the mids into the finish. Sorry I'm being so silent. So, if you like, the Mizunara shows up more after, but I think the more interesting aromatic notes are kind of diminished by the addition of water, even though the transition is a bit more sharp and interesting in the midst to finish. For myself, I'd go for the undiluted, because this is only 40 ABV. Let me go and see here. I assumed it's 40 ABV. Oh, I love when they say gluten-free. So, fun fact, everyone, any distilled liquor is gluten-free. So, well, I guess there might be some exceptions with single-run distills like shochu, but because by the time you get to 80 proof, it denatures most of the proteins that cause gluten intolerance. Those proteins unfold. I find organic chemistry interesting, but I don't have the wattage necessary to actually crank it. It's just like the facts about it are really interesting, and seeing a picture of a molecule over there turning into a molecule over there. Doing the math and science to go and figure out how those things change, even the most simple ones, kind of beyond my mental care. But it's an interesting thing, and is also something that brewing and distilling relies upon. But yeah, man, the text on this is just tiny, man, just so tiny. But yeah, since it's the original juice, I'm assuming that it is 80 proof, aka 40 ABV. So this is several dollars more. I'd say about $5 more than the white label. And I think it's actually really worth it. It adds a whole new layer of complexity to something that wasn't particularly interesting to start with the original distillate. And that complexity is very different. And, you can try it with water to see. You might prefer it with the addition of water or on the rocks. Um, I'm thinking I prefer it just neat. That's just the way I kind of roll. I kind of go for that. But yeah, I think this is actually kind of worth it. And I don't have a whole lot of experience. I think like if I remember correctly, I've had like Mizunara aged, Japanese whiskey like 2 times in my life, and I think it was the same one, same brand. So it's not like I'm really, really up on this. But yeah, from what I remember, from what I've read, this tastes like it genuinely has spent some time in Mizunara. And if you kind of want that experience, and it's not going to be as great as if you went and picked up like Hibiki or something like that. I'm not sure if Hibiki is the one that is aged on Mizunara, but there's a very popular one from Suntory that's aged on Mizunara. I mean, Japanese whiskeys are great, but damn, they are so far out of my price range. This is in my price range. This is in my price range. If you want to experience it and you poor like me, then this is definitely the thing to go with. It's not going to be as amazing as, a Japanese Mizunara cask whiskey, but it's going to give you the elements, some of the elements of that experience. So, that, folks, was your Scotch whiskey review for this evening. Cheers.